everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Cafe. So today I want to continue talking about personal development. It's been the theme that we started with in the beginning of the year. We spoke about things like work-life balance and how to achieve that. And I always am so aware of the fact that by the time we get to February and maybe even start getting into March, life gets real, all the old things come back, we're back running, we are back into this rhythm of fetching and taking kids to school and all this kind of stuff. And so then it's easy to start forgetting about all the good expectations or all the good ideas and resolutions we had for the year. For me, the best resolution is personal development. And that is something that's going to happen throughout the year. And I've spoken about the importance of it in my two videos ago. We spoke about personal development as and we had the metaphor of a stagnant pond. So that nothing new comes in and nothing can go out. What happens? And that really showed us the importance of personal development. Then last week, we spoke about, okay, if I understand I need to do personal development, do I just pull out a plan and start planning? And we spoke about some precursors that we need, things like self-awareness and understanding of a growth mindset. And such, so that we can get started on this process. But it still doesn't give us a whole lot of action points of, right, how do I now do this? And that is what today is about. We're going to talk about how you assess your personal developmental needs. The first part that I think of is the importance of self-reflection. You know, it's difficult to review a book or a movie if you haven't seen it, even if you see the clip notes. And I think this is the same. It's like to understand our developmental needs, understanding that what we want to use them for is to become a best version of ourselves over many, many periods of time, many years, or whatever the case may be. If I want to become the best contributor, if I want to be the best version of myself, I've got to understand where I am now. I have to start with a benchmark somewhere. And that for me is incredibly important. And that is that I think we don't do enough self-reflection. You see, very often we're so busy running, chasing, and then what happens is someone says to us, oh, we've done the performance analysis at work. And what we see is that, you need better communication skills or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately for us, that doesn't speak too much of our personal life. It might be an issue at work, but it might not be an issue in our environment. So we need to stop and for ourselves take a close look at what is it that we need, what we're doing, and what do we need to improve. And that's basically it, is understanding what those things are that we need to improve. Understanding that we're never going to reach the end of this conversation, right? There's always going to be something that upon reflection, we think, I could do that better next time, or I'd like to do that better next time. And then you have to identify what part of that needs improvement and how do you need to go about it. So let's take a look at how we identify those areas that need improvement. As you all know, I'm a strengths coach. I'm a Gallup strengths coach. And from that perspective, I spend a lot of time working with people on their strengths and identifying weaknesses. Now, it's quite interesting, but strength is based in positive psychology, specifically the way that we implement it. And so from that perspective, it's not about, oh, these are my weaknesses, I must bring them up, and these are my strengths, I can pull them down. What we say is, you've got all of these strengths, rather use them to address the weaknesses than try and switch out. Because you see, there's an interesting thing. People cannot be well-rounded. They cannot be well-balanced. If they're well-balanced, then they can only give 20 or 30% to everything. But when we know what our strengths are and we lean into those, we can use those strengths to pull up some of the places that we underperform. So I always like to say that only teams can be well-balanced, because if everyone is playing in the team, everyone's playing to their best strength, and we've got enough variety and diversity of strengths, well, then we can create balance there. And I think that the best way to do that is, obviously, Gallup has their Clifton Strengths Assessment that we use. There are a couple of other strengths assessments that I unfortunately can't speak to for no other reason. I just don't know them as well. Um, and I think there's something about acknowledging and actually leveraging strengths. So here's the thing. I often think that it's great to do your strengths assessment so that you have a language for your strengths. I find that culturally, most people are taught to be very humble, and I think that's beautiful. But the problem that we land up with is that when we're then in a situation and someone says, "What's your strengths?" then we're too scared to put up our hands and go, "No, I'm a really great communicator. I love new ideas. I love spawning new ideas, working with new ideas. I love doing new things differently every single way, every single day." We don't have that language. The moment someone says to us, "What's your weaknesses?" Oh boy, we've got 10 or 15 of those to pull out, don't we? So I love doing the strengths assessment from the perspective of it gives me that language to represent accurately how I can contribute. And then also, it teaches me the language that I can acknowledge my strengths and I know how to leverage them. I know how to work with them. I also understand how they can sometimes get in the way. So, what's another way of finding out how we're going to go about identifying our strengths? Well, actually, feedback. So, apart from introspection and self reflection, feedback is one of the best ways to understand how you are seen. But I have a proviso here, and that is seek feedback from people who, firstly, will have the courage to give you the feedback, and they will do that because they care for you. It's very easy to get negative feedback from anyone. There are people who will always be willing to give us the negative feedback, tell us how we're wrong, how we could have done it better. And they're basically feeding us information from a "you are not good enough, you are too weak" perspective. What we're looking for is those people who are going to say, I need you to know this because I care and I want you to be aware. The other thing is ask feedback from a variety of people. So it's so easy to go, "Well, I'm going to ask my boss feedback. He's going to know." Well, yes, he's going to know, but he's also only going to know give you that feedback potentially from one relationship type. What about people that you've recently associated with via work? Maybe a client that you've built a bit of a relationship with. What about the people in your community? If you maybe attend a church or you belong to a particular hobby group, whatever the case may be, ask all of them and then look for the common threads. I always like to say 5 or 6 people at the minimum, and then search for the common threads and know that those are the ones that are know that those are the common ones that are impacting you in your day-to-day life. So now we've got all this feedback, we've got all of this introspection. Now, what do we do? So I think next, it's important to then look at prioritizing developmental areas. So, firstly, what's short term? What's long term? Do I want to, in the short term, learn something? Or do I want to learn that same thing over the long term, which is the difference between a 3-day course and a 1-year course? Do I need this help right now because not only am I not contributing, but I might be damaging? Well, that's short term. I want to solve that very quickly. Or is it a long term thing where I think, okay, I'm not creating damage right now, but this is something how I can see I can grow over a period of time and become a better contributor. So, firstly, what needs to happen now? Maybe in the next 3 months, maybe in the next year, and maybe in the next 5 years. Prioritize them that way. Firstly, not only does it help to stop the overwhelm, because if you found a lot of stuff that you want to change, it can be very overwhelming and very demoralizing. Plus, it kind of feels like you have to change yourself entirely, which is not the goal. It's not about changing yourself, it's about developing who you are. And then you can start segmenting them by time, by importance, maybe by cost, whatever that case may be. And then I think the other thing is the balance between personal and professional development needs. Because what's going to happen is In the office, there's going to be a very particular set of developmental needs that focus very closely on your role and expectations around it. But you also need to balance your personal needs. And if you work for an incredible company, then they'll be as keen to help you develop your personal as your professional development needs. Now, we've got this plan, and now we need to decide, how do I make the process more reasonable? Because there's like long time frames. There's my personal stuff. There's my professional stuff. There might be stuff that you pulled into because of communities that you belong to, teams that you belong to, that go over and above what you had planned for yourself. I think that for me, the important thing is, and I'm saying this not just as a coach, but I'm saying this as a trainer as well in organizations and a consultant. Do more with less, or maybe do more for less. Watch out that you don't set 7 priorities that you never get to. Rather clear 3 priorities and do them well. And then go up. You can always go and revisit those priorities. You can always go and change them up. And as you quickly get through priorities that are faster to settle, then you can step up and do more what we would call stretch targets, more difficult things, more long-ranging things. And then go and consolidate it all into one clear roadmap for development, so that you're always certain of, the following 3 things I'm developing for myself as my personal development. The other 3 I'm developing for myself as part of my professional development. And the other 1 or 2 might be, yes, it's going to be a quick course I'm going to do with friends, team, whatever the case may be. The important thing is that self-reflection is not going to be enough. I know those aha moments that we get when we go, I now get how people see me, or I never thought of it that way. That's how I'm coming across. I realize that those can be huge and they can sometimes hurt as well. But I think it's going to take the action to actually bring about the change that you would like to make. And so when we talk about the ongoing nature of personal development, ongoing is a verb, and you should be verbing for it, right? You should be reflecting, confirming, investigating, studying, and reflect again and ask yourself, did I get that? Did I learn that? Did I make that change? And did it work for me? Only through that level of action are you going to see your personal development, and are you going to grow and flourish, so that unlike the stagnant pond, you always have fresh ideas coming in, mixing with the fertile pond that is there because it's got nourishment, it's got water, it's got light and air, and that you are giving off all of that good stuff to the people around you. Because when you develop yourself personally, you also actually empower and do right and well by those around you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you're enjoying this series. Please remember, these get uploaded to all of our social media accounts. We also do blogs based on them, so you can go and look for those at Perform Forward. Sorry, I almost said Performance Cafe, at performforward.com. And you can also find all of our related services on Perform Forward. And then, of course, if you have a question to ask, if you've got a different topic that you'd like to see us cover, or if you've got any questions about this topic, please feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media channels, and we will get back to you with the answers as we can. And then, until next week, happy personal development, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.